Today's business environment is changing drastically, and technology plays a key role in driving some of that changes. Digital technology must now be applied across organizations. This new trend will be constantly generating new and enormous data on the organizations, people, customers, relationship with suppliers, and intellectual property. Data-driven is the process of organizational decision-making based on data and insights derived from data rather than intuition, observation, or experience. MDEC has introduced a program called the Data-Driven Enterprise Program. This program aims to provide a structured and accelerated approach to assist business enterprises and professionals in their data-driven business transformation. As part of MDEC's nation-building efforts to propel into the fourth industrial revolution, we want Malaysian business enterprises to become more data-driven, leveraging on data analytics and artificial intelligence to make informed decisions for long-term sustainability and to help the country ride out COVID-19 disruption and challenges. Among the value-added services offered by this program includes data-driven awareness workshops, data and analytics expert advisory services, talent and upskilling facilitation, use case references, and call for collaboration facilitation with data technology solution providers. MDEC will be your partner to facilitate your digital adoption journey to become data-driven organizations that are AI-ready for the future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of our Top in Tech webinar series. I was going to say Innovation Awards. We just had the judging for that, so I'm getting confused with the two events. Anyway, thank you very much for participating. And again, a big shout out to all of you who registered in advance and actually shared some of your questions. For those of you who've been part of our webinar series before for Top in Tech, you know that we go out of the way to answer your questions. And why is that important to us? Because if you're asking a question, it's because you want to learn more about something, right? So we do our best. And instead of us panelists talking among ourselves, we answer your questions. And in that vein, for those of you who have not submitted questions, and as we are talking, a question comes to mind, please submit the question and we will do our best to answer your questions also. And also our three panelists have been briefed that, if they cannot answer your questions on the show, at the end, when we're playing that last 90 seconds clip, they will probably communicate with you and give you either an email or a link to something where you can further engage with them. All right. So with that, I think you would have seen that we have three interesting panelists on our show today. One is a practitioner, somebody who is actually adopting, various tools, digital tools to help grow their business. And some of you may say that, hey, Mydin is a multi-billion-dollar company. Of course, they can afford the best and all. But Malik reminded me of one thing. He said when he started out with Mydin, they were actually an SME, also a small company. So he can give a very beautiful example of how they started small, right? And how they grew along using technology, using data to help them. Then we've got Mr. Government, Gomen, or some of us Penang people like to say Gomen fella. And as you saw the video earlier, Karl says that MDEC is here to be your partner in your digital adoption journey. So absolutely use MDEC, go to the website, lots of programs there. You're going to be surprised by even the few slides that Dr. Karl shares, right? The amount of things they do. And then we've got the all-knowing expert, right? Our consultant. And we are quite privileged to have the head of IDC Southeast Asia to be a panelist. And Sudev will offer some perspectives, at various levels. And he can even talk about maybe what's going on in Indonesia versus Malaysia versus Thailand. So it's going to be an interesting show. We're going to get the show right on the road now. And I'm going to so each of the panelists will actually have opening remarks for 3 minutes. Then I will ask them all one same question, which is actually straight center about our topic itself. And then we go into the individual questions and we'll take your questions as they come also. So with that now, Malik, it will be our pleasure to have you sharing the screen with me so that you can share your opening 3 minutes, which I understand is going to be only 90 seconds. No problem.
No, thank you, thank you. First of all, I want to thank Malaysia Kini and MDEC for having me here. And Karamjit, thank you so much for telling yes, I came from a very small organization. Then we grew to where we are today. In fact, yeah, I joined Mydin in 2001. At that point, we were 7 stores. We were not hypermarket. We were just an emporium. And we actually had 7 branches with 7 different systems, with 7 different data types.
Wow.
So product A, if this in this store is called product A, the other store in the system is called product B, and the third system is called product C. So one of my first job was to look at the problem and say, how do we take care of this and become more efficient? And we as a business, our Datuk Vera had a vision. He wanted to grow, right? And we couldn't grow with good data, right? So my first job was to bring the data together, centralize it. So for my organization, that's the first thing I did. We centralized it. Then we found there was a lot of interesting facts. By just doing that, we found we were ordering wrongly. A different location, we were ordering at different prices. So as soon as we got better hold of our first set of data, we were able to, I would say, make better margins, better decisions. So that was our first experience. My personal first experience in this whole data governance and what value can you get out of it. Then we grew. We have more shops, more stores, and lo and behold, digital became everywhere. Suddenly data is everywhere. And one of the things I learned was that after defense, retail is supposed to be the one spending the most money on IT. Supposedly. I don't have that much money. I don't know where. My boss doesn't give me the budget, but supposedly we are supposed to spend. Now, once you start looking at why, it comes down to data, because we have all sorts of customers, especially in my demographics, the mid to low income. Many people come to our stores, they buy products, they buy a huge range of products.
Okay.
Right? We have a lot of unique, I would say, insights. So when we work with a lot of parties, they say, we want to know your customer, we want to know what they buy. So suddenly data has become very valuable, not only to our suppliers, to our marketers. In most cases, even our customers are saying, look at my data and tell me what you can offer me the best.
Wow, seriously, that's amazing.
We're getting to that level already, so that's where personalization is coming, Now, just like you say, assuming Mydin is so big and we're considered, you should have the money to spend on all this. To be honest, we don't have. I don't have no foreign consultants. And when I look at some of these people coming and looking at it, I say, cannot afford all these buggers, to be honest. But you can start building good data practices. And I think one of the things we were very lucky, we have a good ERP system, SAP.
Okay.
So that taught us how to store data correctly, how to have some data governance. We set up a master data management team.
Wow.
So that we start putting in good quality data, right? Right now, we're in a journey of we already have a lot of data, is how to make better sense of our data, and how can we monetize better. We're already up to a level, but we need to go to the level of Amazon. We need to go to the level of the Lazadas, the Shoppees, we have not gone there just because we're limited by maybe where we are today, talent. Malaysia, is very lacking of talent. So when MDEC was showing data-driven enterprise program, I was so excited when I learned about it. I was like, yes, does it mean I get money? I said, to be honest, it doesn't matter. You get money also, never mind. What I'm more interested in is I can get access to advisory. And I think it doesn't have to be a Mydin as a company. Any company in this journey, right? You can access this program. I went through the whole program last night. And I was like,
oh, nice.
This is brilliant. Anyone of any size can actually have access to it. And you can actually take the different points like the talent and whatnot and see, hey, can I start building up this know-how internally? Can I start building up with some good partners that MDEC has even filtered? Well, I think the opportunities are endless and I'm really, really excited, right? So yeah, that's the whole intro about me. People who doesn't know anything, now we know something, but not so great. So if any questions along those lines, you can ask me.
Yeah. So yeah, do send your questions, and Malik will be looking down, to see your questions, and he'll pick the questions that he thinks will be useful for everyone to learn from. Also, I think I picked up on one thing, Malik, when you said that the founder said he wanted to grow with data, which is amazing because, of course, I think Dato' Mydin is not a tech, savvy person, but he knew enough to say that technology can be a tool to help him run his business better. Even that understanding is enough then to come to the person and say, hey, what can we do, right? And you get the support from the very top person.
Correct. I mean, in fact, when I first joined Mydin, that was my first foray to retail, into IT. He already had a point of sale system running.
Nice. Right? Helps you do your job better than easier.
I was like, brilliant. The fact that he understands I need barcodes, I need to be able to scan, service my customer, that made the job so much easier. Nice. But cool. I'm very lucky. I have a very good boss, Okay, so that makes my life easy. Only he doesn't give you much money.
Okay, on that note, please, nobody, writing questions complaining your boss doesn't allow you to do your job, to be a data-driven company, okay? This is not the forum for that. But now let's bring on Dr. Karl. And I think, Malik, you set a nice stage because you said you went through the program last time. You thought it's fantastic. So at least well done to Dr. Karl and his team, right?
No, not yet go through yet. I'm definitely going to go through it.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, Karl, so the next 3 minutes is yours to share some key thoughts with us.
Yeah, sure. I'm excited to be here. Thanks to you, Karamjit, and also Meshakini. And also thank you for all the panelist members who are here today to share your experience. Let me just pull up the slides. Can I have the slides, please? Next. All right. So I think what Malik has shared earlier on sets the scene, right? So no matter where you are, whether you are small company or micro enterprises, mid-tier companies and large companies, you go through a certain journey when it comes to digitization, right? So I think when Malik mentioned that when they're small, the focus is very much trying to get, digital presence, start to look at the basic digitalization, ERP system, and so forth, right? So essentially, that's what we think when it comes to digitization. It's basically a journey, right? So we start small. You have digital presence, then you look at e-commerce, then you start to look at data, right? So you need to understand data literacy, and going to analytics. And then when you have a lot of data, then you look at data governance. How to bring all the data together. You start to share it across, and finally, you look at analytics and intelligence, right? So end of the day, you want to be able to reach the level where the AI basically there's basically intelligence behind the AI. And MDEC has been offering different programs that basically meets the requirement of different life cycle of companies, right? Based on this journey, right? Next. And when we talk about the more advanced adoption, data adoption, we have been working very closely with the industry, the ecosystem partners, to look at ways to help the demand side to become more data-driven. So we have something called the Data-Driven Enterprise Program, where we work very closely with the ecosystem, with different solution providers to provide workshop, the knowledge to assess where you are, and then also to provide subject matter expertise, linking you with the talent programs that the team in MDEC is running, so they're able to hire resources, and also looking at use cases in terms of solutioning, what sort of areas that you need to look at. And we work very closely with data technology partners, knowledge partners, and training providers to help you navigate through this. Okay, next slide. This is a busy slide. So essentially just telling you that it's basically a structured process where you need to start at the engagement level. Then once you gather the knowledge and doing the assessment where you are, then you need to look at roadmap, where you want to go, and what sort of priorities you need to look at. And each of these steps, we will have different services and different programs to help you navigate through this. Right, so that's all that I have. We're proud to note that we do have small companies and larger companies who have been with us. The larger ones, including even like PNB, worked with us to to look at their data consolidating this, looking at the customers and how best to serve the customers, right? And even to the lowest denominator of even farmers as well, right? So we'll talk more about this later. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Very good. So for all of you, the slides will be shared. And I think there'll be a link shared so you can have access to the slides also, so you can better drill down and understand some of the areas, right? Because there was a lot for you to visualize while listening to Dr. Karl also. With that, now let's bring on our third panelist, and that is Sudev Bangah, who's the head of IDC for Southeast Asia. And Sudev, I almost said head of IDC for Asia, but not yet. I know that's akan datang lah. No, let's not get your boss nervous, but Sudev is quite an outstanding individual in his space here at the regional level. Sudev, the floor is yours, for 3 minutes. I know you can go for 30 minutes, bro. 3 minutes, okay?
I'm going to try my best. Well, thank you, sir, and thank you very much to the organizers for having me. So when we talk about, I mean, this topic has been hot on the lips over the past, 12 to 18 months. Everybody has been talking about it,
yeah.
And especially when the pandemic rolled around and everybody came to, I guess, a point where they have accepted the situation. Work from home environment started to grow. Everybody started to look at different ways to engage internally as well as later on 6 months down the road externally with their customers. So to rewind a little bit, when the lockdowns began to occur, a lot of organizations started looking more internally on the best way to operate and to continue their operations. It wasn't until 6 months later that they started looking at how analytics could play a really big role in engaging the customers, because lo and behold, they realized, whoops, I forgot about them. So as time went on, they started looking more into that. And our data points from Q4 2020 moving into the midpoint of last year saw an acceleration of more than 50% of organizations actually with the intent to want to spend on BI/BA tools as well as to look more and further into analytics. We saw this across Southeast Asia. Some of you might be thinking that's a Singapore or Asia Pacific stat, but that's a Southeast Asian stat. Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, when we rolled it together, it was more than 50% of organizations. And some might be thinking that's an enterprise stat. It is not as well. When we look at SMBs, more than 70% of them wanted to digitalize, and a huge swath of them was cloud as well as analytics. These were the two areas they wanted to actually hop on. So it got really exciting, and we saw some pilot projects occur in Indonesia, for example, some SMEs working with larger manufacturing providers. They started to work into ecosystems, especially around worker scheduling, because COVID was so bad, they had to actually split the shop floor. And because of that, they started to actually leverage these tools in order to look at peak times and to actually schedule in workers to come in at the right times and to avoid a crowded environment. So it wasn't just field anymore. There were a lot of SMEs working alongside these larger organizations to actually make them work within the ecosystem. We also saw from the agriculture side, when it was a bit difficult for, in the Philippines, we saw when it was a little bit difficult for the crops to be moved across to the cities, from the provinces across to the cities, there was a lot of tools put into place also around scheduling and IoT as to when is the best time to actually send in the trucks to pick up the crops and then bring it back to the plants in order for it to then get out to the retail stores. So we saw those pick up. And the one prominent link we saw was the fact that it was an ecosystem rather than an SME sitting in their lonesome, or a large organization sitting in their lonesome, but it was really more an interaction across the ecosystem to make things happen again for the sector. So that got us excited. And if we look a little bit more into the future, and I'll keep quiet in 10 seconds, I promise, but when we look a little bit more into the future, we see this ramping up in a big way. And down to Malaysia, the statistic we have now is 55% of organizations are going to heighten their analytics spending or move into analytics by at least 10 to 15% of the IT budget. So if you're thinking of that, you're one of the 55% and you're actually on the right track in hopefully becoming a very information-based or data-driven organization in the near future.
Oh, cool, man. Okay, great. Like I said, right, for those of you who know Sudev, I think Sudev, there's probably some videos of you talking about this also, right? On YouTube, right? They can access, just do a search for your name, right? And type in.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there'll be a few.
So those of you on the carry on who don't know, right? So you have a sense of, the kind of exposure, Sudev has at the regional level, and it's very useful. Okay, now, Malik, I love the fact that Malik is already engaging with our audience. Also wonderful. Now, I got to focus you back here first, Malik, okay? Because the first question I'm going to ask is for you, and this obviously comes from one of our participants also who pre-registered. So can we get Malik back on the screen, please? Okay, cool. All right, yeah, drink on, no problem. Fluid is important. Okay. Look, Malik, so there was a question actually from Vignesh Warren, and I saw that he's already been busy sending questions also. This is about, are there any real world working systems, right, in Malaysia that are world class right now? And I assume he's talking about working system around, of course, the topic of today, right, which is around, usage of data. So can you share your perspective?
I personally do not know of any, right? Or personally, but if you were to ask me who would probably have some good data analysis tools, and I would say people like maybe Asia, they would have. And of course, they're doing so much in terms of their customers, their, those their digital business they have started off. Grab, definitely Shopee, So a lot of these people, they breathe data, and many a times, especially when I deal with these marketplaces, very, very good insights they can provide. They definitely have some good practice. Other industries, I wouldn't be aware, but I'm sure there are some examples here. Maybe MDEC can give a better answer, use cases. They must have a lot of examples to share.
Sure, of course. And actually, it's a nice segue for you to, for us to go into Karl, right? So there were a few questions that came on from some of our, pre-registered participants, and they did ask around, like you said, big data and AI examples for SMEs especially. And I think during even our, when we were talking beforehand, right, we were saying that we knew that a lot of our audience would want to know of examples of how their peers, right, fellow SMEs, right, are using this and using it successfully. Not just use it and then the outcome is only 10 or 20 or 30% of what they expected. And I think, Karl, you're quite ready to take this question, right, and give some examples.
Yeah, sure. So, I start with the lowest denominator, right?
Good.
So areas where you least expect, right? So in the agriculture sector, when it talks about digitization, it's one of the lowest when it comes to adoption of digital solution, right? So we have been working with the farmers, with the Persatuan Pertubuhan Peladang, which is the Farmers Association, right? So I'm going to put up a slides.
Nice.
Some of the solutions that we're actually working on.
Okay.
Can you have the slides, please? So, so the common problem that we have when it comes to agriculture is the elements, right? So a lot of things that affect the growth of the plant, right? The water, the sun, the fertilizer, a lot of different environments. It's very, very difficult to control, right? So unlike the manufacturing environment, where controlled environment, right? So how we started this is we start to look at a problem statement. What is the problem that the farmers are having, right? We started with the chili fertigation, right? So the problem there is the farmers do not know when to water the plant. They have a fixed schedule, and they have a mixing formula. They mix 3 different fertilizers into the water, and then they manually stir it, and then they actually put it to the plant, right? So a lot of manual process. So you do not know what the quantity. You are not measuring in terms of what's the intake, right? So the solution of this is simple, right? Measure put in sensors and measure the consumption of water, fertilizer, the chemicals that the plant is taking, right? So putting sensors there, and then we automate the whole mixing of the chemicals in automated sort of fashion. And based on the sensors requirement, what the plant wants, I'm thirsty, I need water, the system basically just push the fertilizer and water to the plant, right? So you understand the needs of the plant and give them what they want. And based on that, true enough, a lot of savings, the savings of 30% of
30%. Wow.
of the manpower needed to do this work, and because of the right precision use of fertilizer, the quality of the chili has gone up. In the past, 70% of them are grade A chilies. Now we have 90% grade A chilies. right? And then result to
Wow.
50% increase of income of farmers. Because the difference between grade A and C is huge. Grade A is 9 ringgit, grade C is 3 ringgit.
Wow, big difference.
Very, very big difference, right? So that's the essence of the whole thing, right? So you can't measure, you do not know how to improve. So eventually what we did is we went across using the same principle, using sensors, using data to look at improvement of vegetables, even aquaculture as well. We measure the oxygen level, the intake of the nutrients for the prawns, chicken as well. We measure, make sure that there's high quality water going there.
Yep.
Measure so that the chickens are healthier. So in the past, each chicken, when it's being slaughtered, it's 1.8 kilogram. So with this system, it's 2.2 kilograms. So that translates to 400 grams. And that's nearly 2 ringgit per chicken. And you have 50,000 chicken, it's 100,000 savings.
Wow.
Right? So a lot of this kind of work needed. So the approach of this is you have a problem, you go in to have a targeted approach, measure the problem and come up with solutions to address this, right? So this is just one example. I think we also have retail example as well. I think Malik probably will have more. Essentially, having a basic point of sale systems will allow retailers, even the smaller retailers, to know the current consumption, the patterns of consumption of the consumers, and with that be able to then look at cost savings when it comes to better use of the ingredients, so it's less wastage. And second thing is because you know the consumer better, then you're able to customize some of the offerings for them. For example, off-peak period, you know that, like A and B, you just package it together and give them an offer, right? So a lot of this benefits. And one of the retailers that adopt the solutions managed to save, increase their income up to 400,000 even during the pandemic.
Wow. Hey, Karl, I mean, the fact, so, farmers, I guess some of us will think that farmers are, of course, in my perception, farmers are already folks in their 50s or 60s, right? The young ones don't want to go into farming, although you're hearing of some young ones now going in. So the people who you are touching across these various, examples, what is the age of these people? Because I want to give the listeners an idea, because if most of them are in their 50s or 60s, then nobody has an excuse to say that, this is hard to do, I cannot do, right? Amazing. I don't know your answer is going to be, I'm asking you.
Yeah. So the unique part of this is the leaders of the farmers associations are 50 and 60s. They're quite old.
Wow.
Right? But they are encouraging their members, and some of the members are in their 30s, 40s. They have a previous job and now they're going into full-time.
Wow.
And some of them earn revenue of up to $1 million per year, right? By just on this alone, right? Even on chili and so forth.
Nice.
And at the same time as well, through this program that we are doing, the Farmer Association is training the younger generation. So they are university graduates that came out.
Okay.
They want to become a farmer. I think we went for site visit, and some of them are very innovative, right? So one of them, apart from chili, they're growing rock melon, right? Rock melon is you have to basically send it out for immediate marketing. Otherwise, it gets rotten. But some of the younger generation are very smart. They actually turn the rock melon into rock melon tea. And turn it into a totally different product, and this product has a higher margin, right? And they're also exploring ways, to use like e-commerce and all this to sell it, right? So looking at different ways to make more income, and also I think the use of technology will encourage more younger generation to go into areas such as agriculture.
Okay. Fantastic. Cool. Look, okay, let's move on to Sudev now. Yep, Sudev. And Malik, I saw Jason ask you a question, how much you've benefited. Speak to everyone about that. After this, I'm going to ask you about that. But before that, first, this is a question, I think, from a a friend of ours from overseas, right? They're asking, this is an interesting question. In your view, I guess, Sudev, right? What do you feel are sustainable, very interesting, not the best policy, yeah? What is the most sustainable policy in helping businesses, that means helping everyone out there who's listening today, right? In helping them in their digital transformation from a policy perspective, which is sustainable. Interesting.
That's such a broad question.
True.
So I'm going to try
free consulting.
I'm going to try to hone it down to the topic itself. And since we're speaking about data or data-driven organizations, I think the fundamental around it is creating a culture of ethics and trust. I think that is going to be very important. Data sharing, how that is aggregated across industries, across governments, across consumers. I think that's the very bare minimum that we can look at. And when it comes to the further use of data and how data is going to continue to drive a lot of the relationships between ecosystems with consumers as well as the retail and commercial side. And of course, citizen government interaction as well. That's just going to heighten massively over the next 2-3 years, if it hasn't heightened already. So that's one. Then, of course, then you look at inclusion and making sense of a lot of the implementations. I think when we look at policies and the creation of these policies across industries and the encouragement of industries, it cannot be implementation or forced implementation for the sake of it. I think the drill down of it right now, and I think the crux of the matter, if I can speak very candidly, is that even if you look at some of the use cases written out within MyDigital, I mean, some of those use cases are extremely aspirational, and it does not really reflect in the manner of a real world where Malaysia is today. If we want to accelerate that time frame over 12 to 18 months, I get it. We have to move into it. But those use cases are going to take some time. I'm not even talking about 5G yet, because there's a whole different story to argue into. Is 5G so compelling right now for industry-based IoT, the collection of data? Is hypercriticality of data at this point in time truly needed by industries? Is it truly needed by healthcare, by government? At this point in time, it's still very debatable, because hypercriticality, while it's going to increase, but it's not in the next 3 years. So that idea of those use cases being used to drive real world policies at this moment, that is where I see the disconnect is. Because when you create that horizon over 1, 5, and 10, that's where those real world use cases are going to make sense. And when I say real world use cases, let's change that word to case study. What Dr. Karl brought up, what is being implemented right now, what Malik is doing. That's fantastic. Use those real world examples to then drive the policies. That's what's going to make sense. And I guess the one thing I'm going to say is the fact that you can name and count the number of companies who are doing this, therein lies the problem already. It should be uncountable, like cloud now. Everybody is on it, right? We shouldn't be able to name them that way. So I think that's the second thing. And of course, then innovation. I think a culture of openness, that is going to be very important. Policies to encourage fair competition, policies to encourage innovation, further investments from overseas. I think that is going to be very critical for the next spurt of our industry in Malaysia.
All right, interesting. Look, Malik, I'll go to you. And then Sudev, when I come back, either you pick a question that somebody has asked, or there was a question from a professor, right, from a university, who was asking about the ethics, right, and the usage of data, right? So if you can either take that question, you can take a question that somebody has already asked. But Malik, the question that I think somebody asked about how much you feel you've benefited, because like Karl gave a good example where the chili farmers like 30% increase, right, 20% here. So if you're able to go that granular, would be helpful, or otherwise a bit more broad.
Okay, so let me read the question. It says, how much do you think you have benefited from the analytics so far? When we face any obstacle. Okay, so let me first tell you about in 2006, when we first opened up our first hypermarket, the first thing I learned was how to cut chicken. You know why? Because we needed to figure out when you cut chicken, because we have a standard way of cutting chicken and everything, is what is your yield and your shrinkage. So that data points we wanted to catch. So we know at the end of the day with all the cutting is how much I can really sell and what is my profitability, and so that we can buy the right chicken from the right supplier.
Wow.
All right, so it goes back to that one. Now, data and analysis from how you collect your process, at the end of the day, what can you learn from it? And what can you do about it? This whole thing is all interconnected. So if you ask me what's our benefit, is lucky that we're still surviving after the pandemic. That's the first thing. Data helps, if you take it from your process and you look for insights, you look for new learnings, right? There's a lot of benefits. It's unlimited, and I think one of the key thing is mindset, is culture. And I think Karamjit, you said it just now, culture. If MDEC, you don't want to do anything, it's okay. Don't give money to anybody. Just give everybody talks, get them to change their mindset on how to become a data-driven organization. Just change your mindset, start thinking differently about data, how you capture, how you look at it, how you analyze it. Forget about the software, the tools, the fancy reports. Look at fundamental processes. And I think you can do brilliant, like exactly what you did for the farming. They had a problem. That was your, problem statement. And the beautiful way you solved it, that's what we're looking for. Practical things. Get it done.
And I guess there's nothing sexy about helping farmers, right? So if you wanted to do sexy, you wouldn't have done farmers, but it's a real issue. And it's our food security, right? So
exactly. And I think those are the brilliant examples that we really want to know. Not the fancy ones anymore.
Yeah. True. Okay. So good. Karl, let me go to it. First of all, is there any question you're going to take, Karl? Otherwise, I've got a question for you, right?
Not yet.
Okay. So I guess there was one question that was present about, how do you fast track IR4, right? Adoption to SMEs. And of course, data is a key part of IR4 also. How could, and this was, I think, from Alan Ho. And would you like to take this question and give some perspective here?
Yeah, sure. So I think the SME is basically, as an SME, you're challenged. You need to run your operation. At the same time, you need to look at areas of improvement. Right?
Exactly.
It's one of the many things that you need to address, apart from other things, right? So I think the approach that they need to take it's more like a practical approach, right? As what Malik has mentioned, look at what is the current problem that the company is having. And address those issues one by one, right? At the same time as well, I think there's also certain basic things that you need to do, right? So I think collecting data as a start is good, right? So, and this may not even be in a system perspective, right? So you can use spreadsheet, you can even use your pen and paper, right? To collect data. But at the end of the day, you need to use the data for decision making to improve your business operation, right? So the whole thing is start small and have small wins, and then slowly work your way out, right? So I think there's also incentive for even cloud adoption and so forth, right? A lot of cloud providers out there are even giving out incentives for early adopters and so forth, right? So make use of that, start collecting data, and also start automating your processes, but automate it based on ROI. It has to make sense from ROI standpoint. I will give you an example. The chili example I gave you.
Yep.
Started this. The farmers wanted a solution, but people don't understand what they need.
Exactly.
So the vendors are giving them like 300,000 for a fertigation system.
Whoa.
300,000, right? So when they meet us, they say that, oh, no, I don't want this IT, this solution, it's too expensive. I'm not even making 300,000.
Correct.
So then we came up and we drilled down, understand what they really need. Then we went to the technology providers and asked them to go to the farm and see for themselves, right? Rather than sending it through an email like, this is the price, right? So when they look at this, they know, okay, this is what they need. They came up with a proposal of 50,000. But eventually this solution went up to 20,000 only.
Oh, wow.
So with 20,000 and the result of this, it's basically we get a net return of 2,000 per acre, right? Typical, if the farmers has 3 acres, that's translate to 6,000 per month. And within 4 or 5 months, the whole solution paid
for itself,
right? So they need to look at ROI, right? So if you have volume, then you go into a system where it makes sense for you from the ROI standpoint. And as you grow along, you need to invest the right sort of investment. I think Malik has a point as well. He doesn't have big budget because, you know, he needs to be able to justify the ROI, right? It doesn't make sense to have a Ferrari when you only need a Proton.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a mindset that everyone needs to have. And, you know, when you talk to your suppliers, your vendors, you know, make sure that you work with people that understand you and give you the right solution and help you to grow as you move along.
Okay, cool, nice. So let me go to the, for Sudev, right? Because we're using data so much and absolutely, you know, the respect, the privacy, the ethics, right, of using data is important. And I just had an example like you know, a family member is about to buy a second-hand car, and you know when the contract comes, it's a photograph of a PDF, especially the one about your personal data protection, and it was horrifying. It's like I think a 4-point size, 4-point size. Okay, the bloody font. So how to read that? And I was shocked that they would just blissfully put the personal data, and this person read through and say, hey, they can do anything they want with my data. And I was quite staggered by that. But lucky, because I'm a tech journalist, I know the company, I'm going to scold them and say, how can you do that, right? So, but it made me think that people who are doing this in the digital world, to them, they just want your data, and they don't even give it, ask you for permission in a respectful, polite manner, which is quite frightening. But that's a consumer base. This is business to business, right? So and we'll stick to this. That's just for me venting a bit. Not happy about that. But and you earlier, Sudev, you spoke about trust. So obviously, how you're going to use this data is important. So can you talk us about, you know, this question, right? Asking about the trustworthiness, you know, the ethics of data adoption.
Sure. I think ultimately, you know, in IDC, we have a framework of future of trust. The idea around the future of trust is building into an ecosystem play where data is actually shared across, and ultimately the reputation of your organization is going to be at risk should there be an issue around the data, whether it's leakage or misuse of data. That's a very simplistic explanation of it, pardon me. Otherwise, I'll take 30 minutes for sure. Okay. I think around data ethics and data sharing and data ethics, there's really two ways around it. It can be very, very prescriptive in the sense of forceful, like GDPR. And GDPR is often looked upon as the gold standard when it comes to the protection of data. It may be a gold standard in EU and gold standard by many instances. However, then when we transport that across into the cultural nuances of Southeast Asia and Malaysia, that's where it becomes a little bit muddy. And that's where everybody's saying, hey, maybe this works there, but not necessarily here in Malaysia. So obviously, I think MDEC has been working on a policy around data sharing, and data ethics is a very huge part of this. And inculcating data ethics now, a lot of the responsibility relies on the organizations themselves, and even knowing the data originator and what can be shared. I think within each organization, the trouble is right now is just understanding what data sets and fields can actually be shared out with partners or to be shared out openly, and what can I extract and what can I use ethically. That understanding is missing. But on a cheeky point between G to B or B to G, for example, or even G to C, we had a survey come back that there was a whopping more than 80% of individuals like you and I who are willing to give up our rights to privacy when it comes to something like COVID. We are willing to give up our rights to privacy. You want to know where I check in, where I check out, what time I go to bed, which hospital, everything, I'm willing to give that up. So in terms of a national emergency, we are willing to give our rights, which is very different from Europe, by the way. But again, it's inculcation of that culture within organizations of knowing what I can do with that data. And as that maturity rises, then I think, you know, and implications rise. And as implications rise, penalties get introduced, then you're going to see a little bit more of, I guess, a tighter use of data. There's really no silver bullet here, unfortunately.
So it sounds like when you say, you know, implications or penalty, that means consumers, to get the level of data protection, we want consumers have to be much more proactive, right? And, you know, for example, I could literally take a picture of this example of, you know, them asking for permission, right? Look how small it is and put it up, and, you know, my 1,400 friends on Facebook, or you know, will maybe share it, and then it can boom. You hope it boomerangs, right? And then they say, sorry, we'll give you a proper one, 9-point size, right, so you can read it properly. There are a lot of things we can do, and I'm guilty of not doing my part also, right? So you're right. And it sounds like you're saying the onus is on users also to push and demand for more. Not just point the finger and say, hey, MDEC government, Karl, you do it for us. Yeah, there's too much to be done.
I mean, look at Facebook and the amount of information we give out on Facebook without knowing, and all those sites saying, what is your pet's name? And we openly tell our pet's name when that's actually a secret question for most of your passwords, right? I mean, we do that. So a lot of the onus comes back on us as well. And a lot of the agencies can only take action when they know of a breach or they understand there is something going on.
All right, let me move on now. So, Malik, there's this question actually I'm going to ask about from Barry, right, to all of you all, but I'll ask you unless the other two want to jump in for a quick one, because I'm going to get a few more questions in, which is, but before that, right, I want to challenge you, Malik, because earlier when somebody asked the question about, are there any world-class, Malaysian companies around in this space, and you say you don't know of, I will say that for me, at least, there's definitely at least 2 or 3, but one of them is FusionX. To me, they are at least, top class, right?
Software providers.
But FusionX is software. FusionX is software. What?
But not practitioners. Right?
Practitioners, okay. But why would you say a FusionX is not practitioner?
No, I mean, they're not the end user. So.
Oh, yeah, they are not the end user.
From an end user perspective.
Oh, from end user, okay.
Their software definitely is one of the better ones.
One of the best, very good. So FusionX is one.
Mydin also cannot afford. That's good.
Karl, you better go and scold Ivan, okay? Tell him to...
tell Ivan, give me good discount. Then next time I showcase Mydin as the world class.
Wow, there you go.
With MDEC's help.
Okay, so now coming to this question from Barry, right? Interesting that he highlighted the point that, in the early days, definitely you used the word big, right, before using data. And Barry was quite sharp to say that, hey, why was the word big left out? So... And he's asking whether does it mean that small data is as insightful? What has been your experience, Malik? And then Karl, if you want to ask the same, you want to answer the same question, you can.
Okay. And so just for my understanding, big data is when you're actually working with data at a larger volumes. A lot more comes out. You need better tools to actually analyze it, right? So that is when you start looking at Hadoop and whatnot. Otherwise, a relational database should do most of the jobs. It can give you good insights. You can do good reports. If your organization just need that amount of data, great. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need a data lake. Right? But if you are a much larger organization, data is flying from all over, then you need the big data architecture. You even need data lake, right? Then you can put things together so that you can cope with your users' requirement. That's big data. Right? But that is just where you are, where you come from. Not removing the term big data, but big data itself is nothing. It's just a term, It's data. That's the real thing.
But you are a multi-billion revenue company. Wouldn't you? And so many SKUs, right? You got what? Tens of thousands of SKUs stock queuing units. Surely you all are already knocking on the door of being opening up the big data gates, right?
Yes, we are exactly. So we are at the cusp of right now. We think we need something like that. Otherwise, what we have is currently is a data warehouse, right? All the data already came in from all over. We already put in a nice data warehouse. We use SAP for that, and it does the job for us for now. We are looking for a better solution. Hopefully by next year, we'll have a nice data lake and whatnot. We are working towards it.
Next year, okay. Yeah. I think Sudev would have said, okay, customer, man, better send him a proposal. Sudev, customer knocking on the door of big data.
But as long as you can give me a Ferrari for the price of a Proton, we can talk.
No, but literally in this era, every customer is asking for that, right? Even your SMEs are asking for that versus price point. So for vendor service providers have to offer so much more value to them for them to say, I'll jump to this step, because people are willing to, but just the price point. I think, and I see from the questions that were asked, people are already convinced that there's value in adopting data into the organization. So maybe they still want to know how to do it now instead of, are you sure or not? Really, prove to me, right? I think it's at a different level. So the maturity here also is growing. But okay, so Karl, do you want to take the same questions, or shall I move on to a different one for you?
I think it's basically based on certain needs, right? So I'll give you an example already. If you need small data to improve, why make it complicated and one big data, and the cost to keep the data, the cost to analyze the data, you need more expertise and so forth. So at the end of the day, whether whether you are spending so much to get the small improvement, if your volume is small, then it doesn't make sense, right? So your multi-billion dollar sort of revenue, maybe 1% of 1 billion is a lot, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you can afford to have the resourcing and all these things to get,
Okay, fine. All right. So, Sudev, do you have a point of view about this? How the word, big has disappeared from data? Is it just because analytics software itself has gotten so sophisticated that the word big is irrelevant anymore? Or, like Barry is saying, is it that small pools of data are also valuable? Because before that, it's interesting when you premise it with big, you think you need a lot of data before your data is worthwhile you digging in and trying to find patterns, right? So what do you think?
I think consultants needed a new thing to talk about, and they dropped the big. We're always full of acronyms, isn't it? Good or bad? But I think that concept of just having it as data or data analytics dropping, even in IDC, we don't use the term big data analytics anymore. We call it data analytics, full stop, or AI, the evolution of it. Is again, because when you look at the evolution and we draw out the curve over, when you get across from analytics towards so-called AI on the upper side of the curve, when you go into predictive analytics, predictive maintenance, etc. I mean, the crux of it all is just really looking at the data sets that you have collected. And I did see a question somewhere around how do we collect data? I think that was from the Excel sheet previously.
Yes.
You are already collecting data. Now, how do you make sense of their data and where do you put it in? That's why BI/BA tools come in, as simple as that. And immediately once you start staring at those and pumping them in, you're going to get a swath of different viewpoints that you never once had, even from something as simplistic as visualization, before you even want to look into manual prediction around a BA tool. BI itself, you're going to look historically and pump out what the potential view can actually look at. So collation of the data, we found that the largest issue for a lot of organizations who want to get into it, just going to what Malik said and what Dr. Karl said, is the purpose around it. What are you trying to achieve? And the majority of organizations we've spoken to, they don't have that purpose. They just have a knee-jerk reaction to want to get into it and then ask the questions after. So that's where they get caught off guard with their board of directors. When they ask for funding, when they ask to actually embark on this project, board of directors, very simple. How much money you're going to make for me? How much more efficient? How much cost savings? That's not going to go away 30, 40, 50 years.
Yes.
The mindset is making money with, increasing my profit. So they're going to ask those questions. And then the problem is they get caught there. And when they get caught, then they go back to the drawing board and say, my BODs are not supportive. Now, enhancing it around digital KPIs. And I know this might be a big real world example with a bank called, sitting out in Singapore. I'm sorry to use this example, but ultimately what they did was have all the executives have skin in the game on digitalization. Their bonuses were tied to digitalization KPIs. You achieve that, you get your bonus. Otherwise, you're not getting your bonus. So that skin was in the game, and they brought it to their teams. They encouraged them. There was so much motivation around, and then they started to dig deeper as to all the issues. So I guess my final point around it is that for many of you who are looking on embarking on this, figure out where you are, figure out where you want to go. What are those markers that you want to achieve? And a quick plug for MDEC here, the DAAI tool, the data analytics AI tool, assessment tool. That's a great way to start, because you identify exactly where you are at this point, where your issues, where your gaps, where your blind spots are. Then you know how to take that roadmap forward.
So that tool is already available on their website, right? So that's great. Yeah.
Dr. Karl, do for me first. Don't do for anybody else.
No. Okay, look, we're coming up to it's almost only 4 minutes to go. Can each of you just do a recap, right? So what is a key takeaway for you, right, from this session that you want the audience to take away also? And I'll start with Malik again, right? What key takeaway is there for you?
I think for me, the message I want to get to everybody is that don't get don't get so bombasted with all these fancy words of data lake, big data, AI, and all that. Don't worry about it. Start looking at your processes. Start looking at opportunities where you can improve. You can solve problems and improve. Exactly like how Dr. Karl showed, and Sudev was saying, problems. Problem solve it. find better ways. And data is what is going to help you to get there. So it's about insights, it's about collecting, it's about learning from it and see what you can improve from it. Right. And it's a journey. It's not an overnight thing. Buying a fancy software is not going to make you brilliant. You need to build talent. And if possible, it's not about going out there and engaging Fusion X. You need to have your own internal Fusion X team already. Something like that has to be done now.
But I guess, okay, before I go to the other two, then when you say that, I think for a small organization, there should at least be one person, right, who's looking at this. And sometimes I find it's the finance person, hey.
Yes.
So what do you think?
I think today, the new workers, all of them are learning up. And I think everybody should come in with the mindset that data analysis is part of my job.
Wow, interesting.
Analyze in all aspects of my job. And where does it come from? It should come from education also. So they should get trained up, work relevant kind of training. So when they come to the work, small, big, wherever, data analysis, usage of data has to be inculcated already. It has to be together. Now, if you're talking about a data scientist is a whole different story. Different story. But able to understand data, work with data, use good quality data and come up with good quality data from there, present the data. Everybody should learn that already. I do that every day. You do that. Huh? Many of you do that every day in some form or another. I think that's all. We just have to learn up.
Understood. Okay. Karl, your key takeaway for our audience today?
Yes, I think echo what Malik said. I think the data analytics, data-driven is basically a journey, right? And you need to be able to make use of the data to solve problems, right? So I think I gave very basic examples of the agriculture because it's easily understood, right? So, even farmers who are not really IT literate are able to use it. I think for SMEs and larger companies, there's no excuse, right? And I think different government agencies have different programs to really help companies to move into this, right? Even apart from MDEC, there's also MITI, there's also SME Corp, there's also the HR agencies that actually help in training, right? So, and what MDEC has done is we just bring everyone together and then to offer solutions, right, to help companies to navigate through this. And when we talk about talent, I think some of you may say that, we don't have enough data scientists in the country. It may not be true because right now we have 23 universities that are offering data science in Malaysia.
Wow, that many, yeah? Cool.
5 years ago, there's only 0.
Wow.
So a lot of universities are offering this, and we do have talent. At the same time, a lot of universities are also incorporating data analytics as part and parcel of basic modules for all different degrees, right? And at the same time, also we are working with Malaysia Institute of Accountants, for example, right, to make sure that this knowledge is basically embedded in different degrees, and also in even accountants, right? I think there's talks about accountants being could even be a data analyst material. I think that's true. At the same time, also, I think there's one question that says, would you end up be working with Malaysian Institute of Engineers, right?
Okay.
Yes, we are happy to work because some of our best data engineers and also data scientists also come from engineers as well, right? So yes, we are willing to work with you, right? So I think in order to do this, we need to work together. Provide the right support system and having the suppliers and also the demand side come together to understand and to offer the right solution to the right problem.
Of course, I mean, we say everybody come together. That's what the Sudev started with. It's an ecosystem approach, right? The more vibrant the ecosystem, right? The more players, right? Everybody lifts, the rising water lifts all boats. So good. Okay, so Sudev, you get the last word in what's key takeaway would you like the audience to leave with from our session today?
30 seconds, I'll do this. So I like to end with this. I mean, always cut your projects and initiatives into horizons. and solve that problem within that horizon. Look at your 1-year plan and say that if I want to dive into this, what am I solving? Where does my organization want to be, and how where they want to be? And of course, then how is the solution going to help my organization to get to that point? Where do you want to be in 5 years, and see how to evolve that as well to get to that point of 5 years. And if you're sitting there, you're part of the IT team, or you're part of the digital transformation team, whatever you're called, and you don't know where your organization wants to be in the next 12 to 60 months, then I think that's the first part you need to revisit right now. Understand that, then that solution is going to help you to achieve that. And I think it goes down to what I just saw a quick question from Razlan, and I'll end here around the use of bombastic terms. And I absolutely agree. Like Malik said, just strip that all down. Ultimately, data, it's all about the interpretation of the data. And you learn this in whether it's in high school, in stats, all the way to college and university. Visualizing is the first step, which is why I brought it up just now. Start with that. From visualization, interpretation, forecasting, prediction, everything plays into a much bigger model by the end of it. But that could be your first step if you think that's the most relevant to you right now. So back to you, Karam.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. So thanks, Razal. I was going to apologize to Razal. His question came too late, but you nicely weaved it in. Okay, good. Just a quick one. Vignesh Warren said that he only knows of Petronas as having a data team or data scientist. No, bro. So many large companies already have, and I can I know of 50 companies that have data scientists, data teams. Karl probably knows 250. It's already a lot. Your big property companies, right? Sunrise, Maseng, they all have, because they already know that data helps them connect the dots and also find the missing gaps, right? Through data, property companies, for example, are able to tell that, hey, this IP address or maybe this user has come numerous times but keep dropping off. Hey, let's try to incentive. We need to meet our quarterly numbers. Let's give him a better deal. Like, hey, if you come in at a 10% or 50%, right? IKEA voucher for you if you buy a property now. There are things they can do, but only the data will pop that up for them. Otherwise, they cannot. So I know Barry was trying to get in the quick last question, but we really need to end it now. And then some more questions coming in. Guys, thank you so much. And that's one of the hallmarks of our Top in Tech also, right? We get you involved, we get your questions, right? Everything we learn as we go along, and hopefully some of you can answer directly. I know Sudev, somebody asked for your email, so we can just share with them after this, right? And they can connect with you, and maybe. But if they do, if it's a business opportunity, you got to revenue share with BFM.
Of course.
We say Kini, okay? Okay, but anyway, with all of you, thank you very much. We hope everyone has managed to take away something from this discussion. And obviously, watch out for the subsequent Top in Tech, where we'll have many more interesting discussions. And, especially one around, crypto, the world of cryptocurrency coming up one of these days. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good the rest of the week. I know it's a day and a half to go before Friday night.
Today's business environment is changing drastically, and technology plays a key role in driving some of that changes. Digital technology must now be applied across organizations. This new trend will be constantly generating new and enormous data on the organizations, people, customers, relationship with suppliers, and intellectual property. Data-driven is the process of organizational decision-making based on data and insights derived from data rather than intuition, observation, or experience. MDEC has introduced a program called the Data-Driven Enterprise Program. This program aims to provide a structured and accelerated approach to assist business enterprises and professionals in their data-driven business transformation. As part of MDEC's nation-building efforts to propel into the fourth industrial revolution, we want Malaysian business enterprises to become more data-driven, leveraging on data analytics and artificial intelligence to make informed decisions for long-term sustainability and to help the country ride out COVID-19 disruption and challenges. Among the value-added services offered by this program includes data-driven awareness workshops, data and analytics expert advisory services, talent and upskilling facilitation, use case references, and call for collaboration facilitation with data technology solution providers. MDEC will be your partner to facilitate your digital adoption journey to become data-driven organizations that are AI ready for the future.